operates across the field of culture. And that's a big issue for changing and, giving us an alternative cultural policy, different from this one that we have. If we need to have a more inclusive, culturally more inclusive, and less divisive in terms of class, if we want a cultural policy that serves all, that reintegrates arts into our ordinary daily life, we need to understand this history and then think about how to offer a different cultural policy. So how power of social racial class operates across the field of culture, and how actions in the field of culture help reproduce these inequalities. So like teaching Chinese literature and Hong Kong popular culture in English in order to pretend to be the high-class university in Hong Kong. That's what I do every day. Now, one of you said people there are so hypocritical and pretentious. They think they dress in a certain way, and they make sure people see them right in the tea house. And they create a certain convention of looking arty. And when you go to the tea house and ask who you are, this person doesn't tell you I'm John Merrill or I'm Elizabeth. They say I'm a poet. And you see a lot of these people in Beijing. The first 3 months I'm in Beijing, I run into thousands of these people. Insanity. Okay. That's what he really hates about an understanding of culture. Not an understanding of culture as cultivation, which he benefits a lot in Cambridge, but the tea house idea of capital C culture. And he also quotes something from the book Civilization as a way of excluding ordinary people and ordinary aspects of life from the idea of culture. And you go and read that and you find it extremely fun. Now, before the break, I will suggest also other topics after this lecture and going to your reading. So, tutorial starts next week. So next Wednesday and Thursday is going to be your first tutorial. Make sure you show up, okay? And we will start counting attendance at tutorials and performance at tutorials from next week onwards. Mario Plummer's essay. Now, I have, you see, I have actually captured a few paragraphs from the article. I love the new technology. I don't have to type. So that's what's going to happen. I'll take you through a few ideas. I hope people would be interested enough about these things to go back and read them even if they're not required. Now, Arthur Clammer is a very important person in cultural economics. He is the first person in the entire world to become a chair professor in cultural economics. Before, there is no such field as cultural economics, and his scholarship made this field. He crossbred the two fields of cultural studies and cultural policy and economics. So much that universities everywhere begin to teach cultural policy and cultural economics. And he becomes a chair professor of this new field he helps to create. So he has this essay, extremely easy to read. He is a very, very, very clear teacher. And the essay is cultural goods are good for more than their economic value. And he starts from the usual argument every government and every ordinary people would usually think when they compare economics and culture. He said when economic hardship is the foreground, the most urgent concern, cultural concerns will have to step back, will recede. In the face of poverty and deprivation, spending on things cultural seems wasteful and is quickly judged immoral. Wealthy rulers of poor countries cause dismay with their sumptuous palaces, cathedrals, and prestigious cultural objects. cultural needs, like the need for identity and aesthetics, tend to be perceived as luxuries. Most distant in, he is referring to another scholar, in Maslow's hierarchy of needs in economics, right? If basic needs come first, securing them is what development is about. And people need food, clean water, and shelter before they can address cultural needs. Or so we are led to think. But and he would go on to say, in the poorest culture in the world, how great their music are, how well they dance, and so on and so forth. Now, this is the usual way people understand things. And this is the argument Hao Yingli would give you. Although we are a very, very prosperous city, and our per capita income in Hong Kong is higher than Luxembourg, the richest city in Europe. Cultural goods are good for more than their economic value. And why? And this is how he would explain it. Even a very, very superficial glance, a perfunctory glance, tells us something is problematic, there's a myth in this story we just heard, in the argument we just heard. From cavemen to Australian Aboriginals, from African American slaves to contemporary African tribes, people in the most deprived conditions find time, resources, and energy to make music, build religious temples, maintain sacred places, engage in extensive burial ceremonies, cherish icons, and fashion all sorts of art. Cultural activity matters, and indeed, what would a life be without music, rituals, ceremonies, icons, without sources of inspiration? Even slaves need art and culture. Give you one example. There is one game most of you will know how to play. You remember two people holding a string or a rod, and people would do this normal walk, right? You try not to fall and walk past the string, and the string lowers and lowers until you fall. This game is invented by slaves in the Caribbean. And the African people imported from Africa put the slave work in the Caribbean because the Caribs refused to be slaves and tried to fight guerrilla warfare. They would rather get killed than be a slave. So they don't have slaves in the Caribbean because most Caribs were dead by then. And they imported the African thing. And this game means something like this. However downtrodden you are, however hard you're oppressed, you stand without falling. Okay? That's the whole spirit of the game. That is culture, even of the slaves. And the whole world knows how to sing that music. Okay? And play that game. So this is what Plano's trying to get us to think. Now, the other essay, it's How Does Culture Matter? Okay. And it's written by Martha Sen. This is also a very, very clear and well subtitled article. And I'm going to go through some of the basic ideas here, but it will take you a lot less time to read than you think because it's so clearly written. Now, he is also a very famous scholar in cultural